The Wife is First. Volume 2, Campaign in the Land Under Heaven. Chapter 52, Shang Jing Pass. After hearing what he had said, Jing Shao's worried expression gradually turned into a silly smile and he hugged the person into his arms. It's hard to say. Who asked me to divorce you in the first place? And now you couldn't bear it? But he didn't dare to say the last sentence. If you divorce me, it's fine. I can have you marry into the marquis family as my wife. Mu Hanzhong patted Jing Shao on the head with the feather fan in his hand. Well, that's not too bad. Jing Shao leaned over to kiss him. Dream on. As if I would take you as my wife. Mu Hanzhong avoided his kiss and stood up. You eat too much and you're also lazy. What do you have to offer if I marry you? After saying that, he picked up the tiger cub at his feet. Then he turned around and walked out airily. Jing Shao was stunned for a long time. How outrageous! How dare you say to your husband that he eats too much and that he was also lazy? So, he lifted his feet and chased after him. He was prepared to teach his prince consort the proper way to respect a husband. However, he had only made a few steps when he unexpectedly bumped into the left and right protectorate generals who had come over to discuss setting up the camp. Jing Shao could only suppress the smile on his face and solemnly went back to the central tent. After Zhao Meng led his army to Shang Jing Pass, Jing Shao ordered the Shu army to be on standby and wait for news from Tiger's Teeth Pass that could come at any time. Jing Shao would take the remaining 20,000 people as well as the rations, fodder, and equipment, then station them 30 li away from Shang Jing Pass. Shang Jing Pass was located in the mountains which towered with precipitous ridges on both sides of the pass. The road was narrow and the slope was steep. A high wall had been erected at the narrowest point of the two mountains. The thick and dark brick wall was as high as 10 zhang with countless arrow embrasures on it. One could vaguely see the crowds of people on it. The heavy wooden gate was tightly shut and huddled deep under the door opening. The setting sun could barely shine into the door opening, with only 1 or 2 rivets could occasionally shone with cold light. It was getting late, so Zhao Meng planned to camp for the night and rest for the time being. Tomorrow, he would attack the gate. He had just reined in his horse when unexpectedly, the closed gate rumbled open by itself. The cavalry in the front row immediately tightened their hold on their spears, but after waiting for a long time, no one came out. General, be careful of traps. The young officer beside him warned in a low voice. Zhao Meng frowned, took out the first brocade pouch from his pocket and threw it to the young officer and instructed, "Read it." The young officer hurriedly took out the paper from the brocade pouch which contained a note with the following words: "An open door holds deceit, no need to seek cornered enemy." The young officer's voice was very loud and the surrounding deputy and lieutenants all heard the words clearly, and they couldn't help but marveled in surprise. As expected, the military advisor was really clever in schemes. Zhao Meng snorted coldly and shouted at the city gate, "The traitors of the southwest are really such cowards. Hearing that the army was coming, you must have been scared out of your wits and directly opened the door to offer greetings." Ha 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 ha. The soldiers behind him echoed, shouting loudly, "The traitors from the southwest are as cowardly as rats. Set up camp." When everyone had laughed enough, Zhao Meng waved his hand and gave the order loudly. Before the miscellaneous battalion behind them could bring out the tents, a group of people and horses suddenly rushed out of the gate. Zhao Meng saw that the person who came out was not a general, so he asked to those around him, "Who wants to go and fight?" "The officer is willing to go." The young officer who had just read the note from the brocade pouch raised his weapon and urged his horse to charge forward with his legs. The opponent's leader also sped up, and the two horses galloped like the wind. With a dang sound, the silver spear and the steel whip collided in the air. For a moment, sparks flew everywhere, but because their horses were too fast, the men were only able to make contact once before they flew past each other. The two quickly turned their horses around and charged again. The attacker sent by the Southwest Army was not very good at martial arts, and was suppressed by the young officer shortly after. Kill! Zhao Meng raised his hand and shouted. The cavalrymen who had long been unable to hold back rushed forward one after another. The shouts of kill echoed loudly in that moment. The Southwest Army from the gate also came forward to kill. Because the road was narrow, there weren't many soldiers who could rush to the front. Looking down from the gate tower, one could only see the dark mass of army that occupied the areas between the two mountains in the shape of a long dragon, with the tail of the dragon remaining motionless and only its head stretched slightly. The Southwest Army did not fight for long before they began to flee back. Only then did Zhao Meng discover that after the small group who had exited the gate of Shang Jing Pass earlier, they hadn't moved more than 10 zhang away from the high wall, so it was naturally easy for them to escape. It seemed that this action had been planned in advance, and he quickly ordered his soldiers not to pursue them again. Before the dust and smoke even dissipated, the gate of Shang Jing Gate was closed once again. Zhao Meng looked at the few corpses outside the gate, and felt that there was a faint fire in his heart. The Southwest Army ran after just this little scuffle. It felt as if with all the strength and enthusiasm he had just mustered, he had only hit cotton, making him uncomfortable all over. For 2 consecutive days, the Southwest Army teased them like this. They would let out a small group of soldiers and cavalry to stir them up, only to ran back as quickly. Once or twice was still fine, but now it happened so many times already. Not only was Zhao Meng extremely enraged, the soldiers also started to become restless. They were trapped on this narrow mountain road. They couldn't proceed any further, nor could they fight to their heart's content. Things were extremely frustrating. General, no matter what scheme they have, we have 50,000 troops. Can't we still not successfully attack this 10 zhang tall wall? The captain of the cavalry asked furiously. That's right, General. What are we waiting for? Shouted the hot-tempered young officer. While he was talking, another group of southwestern troops came out to call for formation. Zhao Meng spat, damn it! Kill your way for this Laozi. After saying that, he waved the sword in his hand and headed towards the leading general. The long-handled sword spun half a circle in the air and slashed straight towards the man's neck. The man raised his sword to block, but Zhao Meng was as big and strong as a mountain. He pressed the sword down unwaveringly. Clink! Their blades slid against each other with an ear-piercing sound that was drowned out by the loud cries for blood and the sound of horse hooves. Soon after, the white horse passed by and blood spattered for 3 feet. Zhao Meng had already cut off the other general's head. For a moment, the morale of the army was so high that he couldn't care less for anything. Zhao Meng waved the long sword in his hand, flinging off the beads of blood that clung on his blade's surface, and roared, "Charge!" Kill! The dense mass of soldiers rushed forward. The Southwest Army in yellow uniforms was quickly submerged in a sea of black, as if a long dragon turned into a snake that had rushed in. When the cavalry rushed in, the infantry had not yet followed when, with a loud bang, the gate of Shang Jing Pass, that was previously left open, suddenly closed down. The soldiers who didn't manage to keep up with the general were shut out about 10 zhang away from the wall. Then arrows rained down from the gate tower. The infantry without armor had no power to fight back against those arrows. The infantry captain who stayed outside the pass saw that the situation was not right and quickly ordered a retreat. Meanwhile, Zhao Meng, who was trapped inside the pass, had barely rushed forward with a few steps when he realized that something was wrong. However, by the time he came to his senses, it was already too late. There was silence for a moment until it was broken by shrill caw of crows echoed in the mountains. What awaited him inside the pass was the long mountain road on which stood rows and rows of massive military force. ******. Reporting. Jing Xiao, who was drinking tea with the military advisor, suddenly they heard the drawn-out sound of someone reporting in. The messenger jumped off his horse, rushed into the center tent, and knelt down in front of Jing Xiao with a plop and stated, "Commander, General Zhao and his cavalry are trapped inside the Shang Jing Pass and unable to escape." The infantry remained outside the pass and was besieged by arrows. That bastard! When Jing Shao heard this, he raised his hand to throw the cup in his hand. They had instructed him thousands of times not to underestimate the enemy. This Zhao Meng dropped the ball as soon as he went out. He quickly called the generals in the camp and ordered 200 cavalry to rush in front of the camp to be on standby. Jing Shao quickly put on his silver armor, put the sword on his waist, picked up his spear and walked out. Xiao Xiao! Mu Hanzhong called out urgently. When Jing Shao turned around, Mu Hanzhong stretched out his hand to fasten his helmet and said, "Be very careful. Watch over the camp and wait for me to come back." Jing Shao turned his head and kissed him on the cheek. Then he turned around and opened the flap of the tent. The commander-in-chief was supposed to remain inside the camp, but they have no other general that was available, so he had to go. Mu Hanzhong followed him out. Jing Shao had already mounted onto his horse. Xiao He raised its hooves and neighed, leading the 200 cavalrymen in the front away. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Like a silver bolt of lightning, the silver armor on the black horse split open the long black line of infantry. "How is the situation?" Jing Shao asked the infantry general standing at the front immediately. "General Zhao has been trapped inside for half a day. The shouts of killing were loud earlier, but there hasn't been any movement since then." The infantry captain was very worried. Jing Shao frowned and looked at the high wall in front of him. When he attacked the Shang Jing Pass before, the king of Southwest used this trick of catching turtles in the jar. This time he did not let Zhao Meng take away all the cavalry precisely because he was afraid that he would fall into the same trick as he did before. At that time, he had no other cavalry that could rush for rescue, so he had to take the desperate risk of fighting at the Tiger's Teeth Pass to take a shortcut and save Zhao Meng. This time, Hao Das Hao had gone ahead to break through the Tiger's Teeth, Crane's Beak Pass. In any case, Zhao Meng had managed to drag the fight out for 2 days, so Jing Shao had been able to make it. This general is truly honored to have seen His Highness Prince Cheng today. On the gate tower, a general dressed in brass armor said loudly, "Your Highness General has been besieged by us and will be captured in an hour or so. Your Highness only needs to withdraw your troops. Bow and arrows." Jing Shao looked at the man talking to himself on the tower with cold eyes as he stretched out his hand to take the bow that was being handed over by his subordinate. He pulled the bowstring back into the shape of a full moon. Whoosh! The general who was in the middle of talking saw Prince Cheng drawing his bow and quickly dodged to one side. The arrow scratched the side of his face as it whistled by, showing that he barely managed to avoid it. Before he could get frightened, the second arrow had already followed. He was so shocked that he had no choice but to squat down in embarrassment. Battering ram. Without giving the people on the gate any time to breathe, Jing Shao raised his hand and signaled to start the siege with the battering ram. Arrows swiftly rained down from the high wall. Shield. Jing Shao waved his hand again, and a group of soldiers holding square iron shields who had been prepared beforehand, quickly stepped forward. They lined up on both sides of the giant battering ram, raised and their iron shields high to protect the people carrying the battering ram. They rushed towards the gate at a unified pace, which immediately caused the people behind the gate to panic. The Shang Jing Pass had one fatal flaw. When it was first constructed, it was set too deep into the wall that once people entered the gateway, the arrows wouldn't be able to hit them anymore. Boom! Boom! The sound of the battering ram striking the gate shook the heart of everyone behind the gate, like fear knocking at their chest. Jing Shao did not attack the gate like other military generals who would ram the gate while setting up ladder at the same time for the infantry to scale the wall. Instead, he had the cavalry step back beyond the range of arrows and calmly watched as the rain of projectiles fell down in front of them. Boom! The pass gate was suddenly rammed open, and the soldiers carrying the giant battering ram rushed in with a shout, knocking away the Southwest Army who was resisting behind the door. Go! Jing Shao clamped his horse's belly tightly and rushed out like a sharp arrow. The cavalry behind him also rushed forward. The pass gate was destroyed and the foot soldiers couldn't be stopped. The cavalry went in first and killed everyone in their way. The imperial soldiers poured into Shang Jing Pass like a tide. ******. Reporting. The soldiers who were patrolling nearby galloped over on horseback and rushed into the center tent. Reporting to the military advisor, there are thousands of troops rushing towards the camp, and they are already less than 10 li away. What? The Right Protectorate General who was teasing the tiger cub heard this and stood up. All the elite troops had been mobilized. Now there were less than 20,000 people left in the camp, with 20% of them were miscellaneous workers and handymen who didn't know how to fight. Even if they could kill those thousands of men and horses, they would definitely suffer heavy casualties. Commander, you stay with little tiger for a while, and you must not leave him this tent with even half a step. The Right Protectorate General put on his armor and walked out. End chapter. The Wife is First. Volume 2, Campaign in the Land Under Heaven. Chapter 53, Desperate Situation. Wait. Mu Hanzhong hurriedly called to the Right Protectorate General and spoke very quickly, I have ordered people to drive wooden stakes around the camp. Have the soldiers quickly tie the tripping ropes to the wooden stakes. The Right Protectorate General was stunned when he heard this. Then he turned around and ran outside. Mu Hanzhong turned to the Left Protectorate General and said, what is the chance of victory between infantry and cavalry? The Left Protectorate General said calmly, cavalry is all about speed. 3 infantrymen can fight 1 cavalryman. Mu Hanzhong nodded slightly when he heard those words. Based on the number of people, we have a great chance of winning, but the enemy has besieged our camp by a surprise raid. However, we must not panic. The Right Protectorate General is impulsive. Quickly go and mobilize your troops. Set up a defense into 8 directions behind the stumbling ropes. The camp is square in shape, 165 meters on each side. The Left Protectorate General cupped his fists and said, yes, sir. As soon as Zhao Meng led his troops inside the Shang Jing Pass, they were locked in and got soundly beaten. A large number of infantrymen emerged from the mountain. They were armed with curved swords and specialized in chopping horses' hooves. They were forced to continue running forward on foot, killing as they advanced. Unexpectedly, the road was heavily garrisoned and there were dangers everywhere. Rolling stones, traps, and spikes were used to every possible means, causing them to suffer a lot along the way. General. The captain of the cavalry supported Zhao Meng. They had just survived a rolling stone trap. Even Zhao Meng was slightly injured, so he stopped and took a rest. After walking for so long, we've only advanced less than 10 li. What should we do? Zhao Meng took a breath. There were ambushes in front and troops pursuing them from behind. He was in a dilemma. Suddenly he remembered what the imperial advisor had said. So, he quickly took out the brocade pouch and opened it. The note in it read, the sea of suffering has no end, but if you turn around, you will find the shore. What does this mean? The cavalry captain was very confused with the message. Why does the military advisor have to write in such a cryptic manner? Did he want them to decipher its meaning in this desperate situation? Zhao Meng stroked his beard and thought carefully about their current situation. It was obviously a trap set up by the king of Southwest. Since the military advisor left these words, he must have calculated that he would fall into the trap and reminded him to quickly turn back. Their infantry was still outside the gate. The cavalry couldn't let themselves be ground down like this. They have to get back and convened with the infantry. Zhao Meng, who finally calmed down, quickly got on his horse and said, all officers and soldiers, obey this order, quickly return to the gate of Shang Jing Pass. Jing Shao rushed into the pass with his troops and horses, and a group of southwestern troops quickly poured down from the mountains. Jing Shao tightened his grip on the reins and roared, cavalry, advance first. Infantry, prepare your swords. He spoke using the power of his inner chi, which made his voice resound like a gong being struck, intimidating everyone. Xiao He reared up and whinnied before charging forward in a flash. The horses behind him also accelerated their speed. The infantry behind him heard his order and grasped their weapons as they quickly retreated, while those holding swords took several hurried steps on both sides of the formation. Whish, whiss. Their blades turned toward the enemy soldiers, who swooped down from the mountain to launch an attack with momentum. Curved swords were only good for cutting off horse hooves and was no match for the broad knife full of sharp edges. The Southwest Army, rushing at the front, directly ran into the prepared swordsmen. For a while, only blood-curdling screams could be heard as blood sprayed in the air like mist. The head of the long dragon-shaped line of infantry was Jing Shao's personal guard, who acted with implicit understanding in battle, strictly following his orders. After cutting down the enemy at the front, the swordsmen quickly retreated to make way for the soldiers with spears, who quickly and successfully kept the men with curved swords at bay. The mountain road was narrow and there weren't many who can directly face the enemy on this terrain. Despite their lack in numbers, the Southwest Army continued in their vain attempt to win the battle. Jing Shao fought alongside his army as they marched forward. Along the way, corpses were scattered everywhere, along with crushed stone, discarded armors, and fallen weapons. Xiao He was extremely talented and knew how to avoid obstacles on its own, but other horses did not have this ability. He reined in his horse and ordered the infantry to clean the battlefield first. Not long after, they saw smoke and dust billowing in front of them, and saw Zhao Meng with his head and face filthy with grime, and a large group of cavalry rushing over in disgrace. "Your Highness." Zhao Meng was extremely moved when he saw Jing Shao. Jing Shao looked at him coldly and saw that his armor was damaged, so he thought he was injured. "Go back to the camp. After this prince cleared the Shang Jing Pass, I'll go back to deal with you." Upon hearing this, Zhao Meng's expression immediately changed. He dismounted from his horse and knelt down to say, "The general is reckless and willing to receive punishment, but as the commander-in-chief, your highness should be defending the main camp. This one earnestly requests the commander to give this general another chance." Reporting. Before Zhao Meng could finish his statement, a messenger rode on fast horse through the sea of soldiers who made way for him. Reporting to the commander, more than 1,000 cavalry have launched a surprise attack on the main camp. The messenger's voice was very panicked. "What?" Jing Shao's eyes widened, as if he had been struck by lightning. With all the cavalry already mobilized, this sudden attack on their camp would result into heavy casualties. Moreover, his Jun Qing was over there. "Your Highness, the cavalry is of little use on this mountain road. Allow this one to lead the infantry first." Zhao Meng took the opportunity to stand up. Jing Shao gave him a profound look, then he quickly turned his horse's head, and said, "Cavalry, heed my order. Return to the camp at once." Without saying another word, he led most of the cavalry away. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Mu Hanzhong stood outside the central tent and looked into the distance. Dust and smoke billowing not far away, bringing with it a menacing and overbearing air. It was clear that these people had come with evil intentions. Nay, the surprise attack wasn't actually focused on a single point, but was rather divided into 3 cone-shaped formations that attacked from the east, south and west. They moved too quickly. When one horse tripped over the stumbling rope and fell, the one behind would trip over the fallen horse in turn. For a while, all that one could hear was the neighing of horses. The infantry troop of the camp that had been split into 8 directions quickly gathered into 6 and quietly watched as the enemy's horses fell one after another. Soon, the people behind realized that there was a stumbling rope and slowed down their march. 1, 2, 10, soldiers and horses crossed the rope one after another, including those wielding long swords who cut off the stumbling ropes. The enemy troops were like water rapids flowing through the fingers, turning into ice picks and piercing directly into the infantry formation. Soon, the sounds of killing reverberated through the sky. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Jing Shao fiercely whipped the horse harder, faster, and faster. He didn't dare to distract himself from thinking about where these people came from, nor imagining what kind of condition Jun Qing was in at this moment. Xiao He felt his master's impatience and galloped wildly with all its might, leaving far behind the cavalry at their back. One horse took the lead and rushed forward. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The fact was, cavalry did not have much advantage over the infantry, and even if one cavalry soldier could deal with 3 infantrymen, he wouldn't be able to do so without sustaining severe injuries. Mu Hanzhong frowned as he watched these people charge so desperately, wondering why they didn't seem to care for their lives. Whoosh! Mu Hanzhong was startled for a while and subconsciously turned sideways to dodge. An arrow flew through the place where he was standing and penetrated the central tent. Looking out, he saw arrows flying everywhere. The enemy didn't just have cavalry but mounted archers as well. The cavalry didn't have much advantage over infantry, even though 3-1 didn't seem very cost-effective. However, if they were mounted archers, then their arrows would be extremely lethal and would indeed increase the casualties in the camp. However, soldiers who could ride and shoot were elite soldiers. The Southwest King's bloody attack on the camp must have been for a purpose, and that purpose was whoosh! Whoosh! Countless arrows were shot towards the center tent, and Mu Hanzhong vaguely felt that the target might be him. He turned around and quickly ran to an area with more people in order to obstruct the archers. The closer he was with other people, the less likely he would get hurt. Be careful, military advisor. The Right Protectorate General turned around and saw Mu Hanzhong dodging arrows. He pulled him to his side and gave him a short knife, then said, "Don't leave my side." Mu Hanzhong held the knife in front of him and raised it to block the spear that was about to be swung down. The Right Protectorate General slashed with his sword and immediately cut off the spear-holding arm and put his foot on the horse's belly. Ah! The man on the horse screamed as he fell off his horse. The infantry on the side immediately slashed him to death. The military advisor is truly a man of many talents. The dagger was given to him just in case, but unexpectedly the military advisor actually knew how to use it. That knife technique was precise and the moves were concise. Even though it lacked the power of internal qi, the execution of the technique was pretty good. Mu Hanzhong curled his lips into a smile without answering. He stood back to back with the Right Protectorate General. He couldn't practice martial arts with his weak meridians, but that didn't prevent him from practicing these skills. To prevent himself from becoming a useless and sickly person, Mu Hanzhong, who really yearned to practice martial arts, often secretly watched his father practice wielding his weapons and memorized the moves one by one. He would then practice secretly in his courtyard in the evenings. As days and months went by, he learned some self-defense moves and his body also gradually improved. A surprise attack by the cavalry troops depended on its swiftness and ferociousness. Now, their attack had been slowed down and could not even find its target. They were eventually overwhelmed by the number of cavalry soldiers and gradually lost their spirits and was slowly eliminated one by one. Mu Hanzhong had just breathed a sigh of relief when sound of horse hooves were heard again from a short distance. His heart suddenly tightened. He looked up and saw a black horse and silver armor. A single rider emerged from the billowing dust on the horizon. His pursed lips slowly curled up, his Xiao Xiao had returned. Jing Shao clamped his horse's belly and rushed toward the camp, watching the chaos from a distance. As he got closer and closer, the man in blue robes was so conspicuous among a group of dark uniforms. Mu Hanzhong was holding a short knife with blood on it, but it gave people the illusion that it was just a long flute. Seeing that Mu Hanzhong was safe and sound, Jing Shao's heart that had been on his throat all this time, finally dropped down. Jing Shao couldn't help but grinned and ran towards his prince consort. At this moment, a sudden change occurred. An enemy soldier hiding behind the tent suddenly jumped out and aimed his long sword towards Mu Hanzhong, who was wearing a long green outer robes. Jun Qing. Jing Shao felt his heart being clenched fiercely. He watched helplessly as that long sword swung at that fragile person. He saw his blood splattered and felt that the world had suddenly turned dark, and the only color that he could see was that striking bloody red. No! Jing Shao roared and rushed forward. Jing Shao pulled out the long sword from his waist and chopped off the head of the man on the horse with a ka-cha sound. Blood immediately splattered 3 feet in front of him. Xiao He raised his hoof and kicked the half-erected horse away, revealing the person behind it. Military advisor. The Right Protectorate General turned around and yelled in shock and anger. He reached out to pick Mu Hanzhong up, but someone was even faster than him. Jing Shao jumped off his horse and took Mu Hanzhong into his arms. His eyes were red and his voice was trembling. Jun Qing, Jun Qing. Oh! Mu Hanzhong grunted in pain, covering his injured shoulder. Blood trickled down from between his slender white fingers. He raised his slightly white lips and smiled. It's a small injury, don't worry. Hey! Jing Shao looked at the place where the blood was constantly seeping out, and his heart ached beyond measure. He picked up the person in his arms and walked towards the imperial tent. He loudly ordered, "Get the military doctor, quickly." There was no need to worry about protecting the military advisor. The Right Protectorate General raised his sword and yelled, "Damn it! You dare to hurt our military advisor! Kill them! Kill!" Hearing this, the soldiers rushed towards the few remaining cavalry. Jun Qing. Jing Shao kept calling the person in his arms, fearing that he would faint. "Xiao Shao, I'm fine, don't be afraid." Mu Hanzhong leaned into his arms. This injury was just a skin deep. He wanted to laugh at this man for making such a fuss, but he felt how the arm that was holding him was shaking slightly, so he couldn't bear to scold him. Thus, he lifted his bloody hand and comforted him in a soft voice. End chapter. The Wife is First. Volume 2, Campaign in the Land Under Heaven. Chapter 54, Yang Chun Noodles. Jing Shao hugged the person in his arms tightly. The scene in the prison in his previous life kept reappearing in front of his eyes, making him afraid. Today, if he had been one step too late, his Jun Qing might have become a ghost under that sword. "Your Highness, the military doctor is here." The Right Protectorate General dragged the military doctor and ran inside in a panic. Then he saw the military advisor leaning within Prince Cheng's arms and thought, what an ambiguous position. The Left Protectorate General also walked in and saw how the Right Protectorate General looked like someone who had been struck by lightning. He hurriedly nudged him with his elbow. When Mu Hanzhong noticed someone coming in and let go of Jing Shao's hand. Jing Shao raised his head and glanced at the military doctor and asked, "Are you still not coming over yet?" Since an imperial prince was going to an expedition, the court physicians assigned a younger imperial physician to accompany the army, so he could barely trust the medical skills of this military doctor. "Your Highness." The military doctor hurriedly stepped forward and put down his medicine box to the side. He moved to take a look at Mu Hanzhong's condition. He reached out to pull his lapels open. "What are you doing?" Jing Shao grabbed the hand that was reaching for his prince consort chest and probed with blazing eyes. Your Highness, this official has to open his lapel to examine the wound." The military doctor was startled by how Prince Cheng was glaring at him and stuttered as he explained himself. When Jing Shao heard this, he immediately became unhappy. He didn't want anybody else to see his prince consort's body. But there was no other way. It was important to heal the wound as soon as possible. Therefore, he took a deep breath and raised his hand to personally untie the robes of the person in his arms. Naturally, there was a huge rip in the garment where the wound was. Fragments of the cloth was already stuck to the skin because of the blood, and it hurt when those fragments were being pulled. Mu Hanzhong couldn't help sucking in breath. Jing Shao didn't dare to make sudden movement. He carefully picked up the tattered fabric and tore it open with a sharp sound. He quickly peeled off the clothes on his shoulders, revealing his shoulders that were stained red with blood. That's when Jing Shao saw that the 3-kun long wound winding from his shoulder to his collarbone was still bleeding incessantly. It looked quite ferocious. The military doctor was intimidated by Prince Cheng's imposing demeanor and did not dare to touch Mu Hanzhong, so he only moved closer to examine the wound carefully, reporting to Your Highness, "It's fortunate that he dodged just in time. The sword didn't cut any major meridians or any internal organs. The wound just needs to be medicated and bandaged properly." There weren't many medicinal herbs in the army camp. Moreover, he wasn't some delicate members of the imperial family, so the doctor also didn't prescribe any blood-enhancing decoction or the likes. Jing Shao looked at the pale handsome face of the man in his arms and felt extremely distressed. The wound was so big and they would have to march in a few days. The road was bumpy and it would definitely not heal well. When the military doctor saw that His Highness didn't say anything, he took out the Jinchuang medicine used for treating cut wounds from his medicine box. "Ask the guards bring in a basin of hot water. All of you can leave." Jing Shao grabbed the medicine directly, without giving the military doctor any chance to apply the medicine, and waved everyone away. He gently put the man in his arms back on the bed. When Jing Shao got up to get something, he saw the left and right protectorate general standing on the side like two big wooden stakes. His face suddenly turned cold as he said, "The camp is in chaos now. What are you two doing still standing here? These subordinates shall withdraw." The left protectorate general immediately asked to be excused and dragged the right protectorate general out. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Little left, why do I feel that something suspicious was going between His Highness and the military advisor? The right protectorate general scratched his head in distress. The left protectorate general glanced at him and dragged him further away. "Hey, why are you ignoring me?" The right protectorate general tried to kick the left guards but as he walked but his arm was being pulled and his legs were too long to kick a target that was too close. "If you stand there and talk, His Highness can still hear you," the left protectorate general said expressionlessly. "Ah!" the right protectorate general exclaimed in fear and increases his pace as he quickly pulled the left protectorate general away. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Jing Shao soaked a piece of soft silk with warm water and carefully wiped away the blood around the wound. Instead of using the medicine given by the military doctor, he took out a small jade bottle. "Applying this medicine will not increase the pain and will stop the bleeding quickly. Don't you still have a medicine from the western regions? Use that one." Mu Hanzhong raised his uninjured right arm and blocked Jing Shao from opening the medicine bottle. The war campaign was an urgent priority and anytime, they would have to move camp. Although this medicine was good, it would not speed up the healing of the wound. He remembered that the medicine that Jing Shao gave him to treat his lower lip on their wedding day could heal the wound quickly, so it would not affect the army's march. No. Jing Shao refused without even thinking about it. He washed his hands in warm water and poured the clear ointment from the small jade bottle on his fingertips and applied it gently to the wound. "That medicine will increase the pain several times. You wouldn't be able to stand it?" The cool ointment was applied to the injured area, which immediately relieved the burning pain. Mu Hanzhong closed his eyes slightly and took a breath. Jing Shao leaned over and placed a soft kiss on the side of his face. He suppressed the acridness in his eyes as he bandaged the wound with practice hands. Then he quickly covered Mu Hanzhong with a quilt. Mu Hanzhong turned his face and saw Jing Shao's distressed eyes. "I'm fine. Go on and do what you must." Jing Shao held one of Mu Hanzhong's hand that was outside of the quilt and slowly rubbed the center of his palm over and over again. He didn't get up nor did he speak. After coming back from the past, he had never taken anything for granted ever again, but this kind of thing still happened due to his overconfidence. Now that the war against the vassal states was happening 3 years ahead of time, many things were bound to be different. The relatively younger king of Southwest and king of Southeast would have different thoughts and employ different methods. Just like the mounted archers that attacked the camp today. They were considered the trump card of the king of Southeast. In this life, he was actually willing to lend this secret weapon to the king of Southwest, which was truly outside of Jing Shao's expectations. Jing Shao pressed the back of that hand to his face. The world and the throne, he had long stopped wanting those things. In this life, what he really wanted was to stay with Jun Qing forever. If he lost this person, what would be the meaning of living this life again? The softness he was holding suddenly turned to grasp his own hand. Jing Shao came back to his senses and looked up at him. Mu Hanjiang looked at Jing Shao, who was so depressed that he looked like a wounded little animal, clinging on to the only thing he had and refusing to let go. His heart couldn't help hurting a little and his lips curved slightly. Go and help me find Xiao Huang. There was chaos just now and I don't want him to get lost. Jing Shao forced a smile and nodded. He got up and went out to find the tiger cub. Jun Qing had no idea how heart-wrenching his smile was with those bloodless lips. It took him a long time to find the little tiger cub which was hiding in the crack of a box. Jing Shao shook off the dirty grey dumpling in his hand in disgust. After shaking it for a bit, he threw it to a soldier to give it a bath. Then he went to personally to handle the camp affairs. After carefully examining the clothes and weapons on the corpses of those cavalry soldiers, Jing Shao determined that they were indeed from the Southeast King. It's understandable that he would take advantage when the main forces were mobilized to launch a surprise attack on the main camp. However, it didn't make sense for him to target a minor military advisor even if he was a budding talent. Not even one survived. Jing Shao frowned. Those mounted archers were too fierce. We absolutely couldn't leave any of them alive. The Right Protectorate General was still feeling horrified when he thought of the attack of those enemies that their swords had to cut down that morning. He could still see that desperate style of fighting, exposing all sort of openings just to kill a certain person. It was the first time he had witnessed such a thing. Repair the camp tents carefully and set up another line of defense outside the camp. Also, put more night patrol. Jing Shao took the count of casualties and injuries from the left Protectorate General and waved the two people away. The guards came in to deliver the air-dried tiger cub. After Jing Shao looked at what the guard had in his hands, he picked up Xiao Huang and returned to the imperial tent. The person on the bed had already fallen asleep, and the sunset reflected on his face through the material of the tent. He was still a little pale, perhaps because of the pain in his wound. Mu Hanjiang was not sleeping comfortably and was even frowning slightly. Wow! The tiger cub, who had been tossed around for a long time, shouted excitedly when it saw its master. Shh! Jing Shao slapped the tiger cub's head to silence him, but the hairy dumpling in his hand couldn't understand at all. It struggled, trying to get on the bed. The person on the bed slowly opened his eyes and looked at the two who seemed to be in the middle of an argument. He couldn't help laughing and slowly sat up. Don't move too much. Jing Shao hurriedly stepped forward to support him. The tiger cub jumped onto the bed, rolled around the quilt before it tried to get onto Mu Hanjiang's lap under the quilt and scratched at it. Not long after, the soldier who was delivering the meals came in with 2 bowls of noodles and said, "Military advisor, the noodles are ready." "Why do you suddenly want to eat noodles?" Jing Shao raised his eyebrows. He remembered that Jun Qing liked rice and didn't eat noodles much. A bowl was brought over and Mu Hanjiang moved to take it, but Jing Shao evaded his hands and said, "I'll feed you." Mu Hanjiang blushed immediately. The injury is on the shoulder. It won't be a hindrance with eating. He was already 20 years old, how could he still let someone else feed him? No, seeing that the pale face finally having some color, Jing Shao couldn't help but feel better. He smiled and picked up a chopstick of hot noodles and brought it to his lips. "Eat it while it's hot." Mu Hanjiang had no choice but to open his mouth and take a bite. Then he watched with widened eyes as Jing Shao ate the half-bitten noodles left on the chopsticks. Your Highness." Mu Hanjiang looked at him blankly. Feeling pleased, Jing Shao happily rubbed his face against his dumbfounded prince consort and then continued to finish the bowl of noodles in the same pattern of him eating the noodle that Mu Hanjiang's had half-bitten. Although it was just yangchun noodles cooked with some green vegetables, Jing Shao felt that it was the most delicious noodles he had eaten since his childhood. When the tiger cub in Mu Hanzhang's arms saw them eating, it stood up by Jing Shao's arm and stuck his furry head into the bowl. Jing Shao stuffed half a noodle into the tiger's mouth. The tiger cub chewed it and spat it out in disgust. Night fell, and due to the chaos that day, the barracks still hadn't completely settled down yet, as people were still busy everywhere. Mu Hanzhang lay in Jing Shao's arms, frowning slightly. The wound was so painful that he couldn't sleep at all, so he slowly sat up. Jun Qing, what's wrong? Jing Shao felt his arms got empty and woke up immediately. Seeing that the person next to him was still there, he breathed a sigh of relief and sat up as well. I can't sleep, let's go for a walk by the river. Mu Hanzhang said as he got out of bed and got dressed, hanging the jade flute around his waist. Jing Shao was stunned for a moment. Afraid that Mu Hanzhang might reopen his wound, he went to help him put on an outer robe. Although he didn't know why his prince consort suddenly wanted to walk by the river in the middle of the night to enjoy the night breeze. His brain was still half asleep, so he thought that he might as well go for a walk. Camps were almost always built near a river, so there was a small river behind their camp. The moonlight shines on the shallow water where one can clearly see the pebbles on the bottom of the river. The two of them walked hand in hand by the river for a while. Cold sweat broke out on Mu Hanzhang's forehead and he had to sit down on a stone. Jing Shao touched his sweaty forehead and said, "Don't move anymore. Sit down for a while and I will carry you back." Mu Hanzhang took a breath, raised his head and smiled. "Do you know what day it is today?" "What day?" Jing Shao was stunned. He looked up at the waning moon in the sky but couldn't remember what today was. Mu Hanzhang smiled without saying another word and took the jade flute from his waist and said, "Let me play a tune for you." End chapter.